Hello. We are on day 2 of better loving yourself so you can love your neighbor, or loving yourself so you can better love your neighbor. Day 2 is, what is a limiting belief about yourself or your abilities that you carry? So a limiting belief for me would be something that I believe about myself that keeps me from reaching my God-given potential, or keeps me from freely using the gifts that God gave me as a person. And this morning, the thing that I think of is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So even if we do carry one of these limiting beliefs, without Christ, without our God, without our Savior, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do these things, because we need that power in us to do these things, like love our neighbors, because, sometimes loving your neighbors is a really difficult thing, because your neighbors or the people that you interact with may not be lovable, but we are called to love them. And I'm not trying to guilt anybody by saying that, but sometimes it is beyond our own strength. So I'm going to answer the question. So what is a limiting belief about yourself or your abilities? I probably have a few of them, but the one that really pops out in my mind is that I am merely tolerated, not loved. And different areas of my life, this is more evident, and it is probably not even the truth, but it's something that I have believed and I have carried a lot of my life, even in, circles of friends that I had when I was a younger person, a teenager, even in my own home at times, and then with groups of people that I was friends with as an adult. I don't really have groups of friends anymore because I've taken myself out of that, and that's another topic. But I always believed that I was not loved or liked for who I was. I was merely tolerated. Because of the ways that I could benefit these people or benefit these groups, they merely tolerated who I really was. They wanted, and I'm not speaking out of that's what they told me. I'm speaking out of, this was the belief that I had about the situation. This is what my thoughts were telling me, and my probably damaged self was telling me. They wanted the joy, and that's me. They wanted the joy that could do things for them. They wanted the joy that would provide for them. They wanted the person that was happy and uplifting and delightful and pretty and funny and could tell stories and make everybody laugh. But when it came down to who I actually was and what I actually wanted to say and what was going on in my head, my thoughts were that part of me was tolerated, that the insightful and, melancholy, possibly sad part of me that would come out with things that were, I don't want to say profound, but, perhaps, God-given insight. That part was tolerated. That part wasn't loved. Those were my thoughts. So after being in, it really happened when I was involved with a church, and then in groups of people, in circles of friends, invited to parties, in like Bible study situations where I felt like the person, oh, hang on, I'm going to be noisy. My boys, being boys, had to run noisy up the stairs, so I had to stop. And I'm not really sure where I was, but I realized this when I was in groups, in church, in other groups of women and different things, that I had this feeling of only being tolerated, not really being completely liked. And some of that may be true for some people. I know that when I worked with other people before I was self-employed, and I worked in a salon with several other women, I definitely had that feeling again. And maybe it's everywhere I go and every group that I interface with, that I feel that I'm not truly liked and loved for who I am. I'm merely just tolerated. And the parts of who I am that are helpful and that someone could benefit from are liked, but then the actual inner part of me is not. And what has happened then is that has kept me from showing that part to anyone anymore, other than my family. Of course, they get most of me all the time. But that has kept me and stopped me from, behaving in the way that I naturally would. And dogs. All right, guys, here's your question for today. What is a limiting belief about yourself or your abilities?
Giving them homework, Mom?
I'm giving them homework. I'm giving them homework. There's your homework, guys. Answer the question. Live and love out of the way you were created.